Let's cultivate our motivation. So our self-centered thought spends a lot of time and energy protecting things that are by nature impermanent. So the self-centered thought fears loss, doesn't want to lose our possessions, our body, our friends and relatives. And yet, by the very nature of things, without any third cause having to come, or any other cause having to come, things change and don't remain the same. So given that they change, it makes sense for us to use them in a way that creates the causes for happiness. Because given that we're not going to be able to hold on to them forever, let's use them in a beneficial way. But the self-centered thought protests and clings, trying to hold on to something as long as it can. And that clinging is what causes the pain, because the separation is inevitable. Whereas when we see that things are changing every moment, and that we won't possess them forever, then we don't cling, then we can use them in ways that benefit ourselves and others through practicing generosity and other practices as well. So let's make a strong determination not to let our self-centered thought run the show, but to let the wisdom mind make our choices. So that we can create the causes of happiness, avoid the causes of suffering, lead others to do so as well, so that all of us can create the causes for full enlightenment and become Buddhas. So we can really see how our wrong conception mind causes our problems, can't we? Yeah, the wrong conception mind, refuses to accept the nature of things, fights against it, and says, things are impermanent, but I'm going to make them permanent. I'm going to hang on to them. Things don't have any independent essence of their own, but I'm going to treat them like they do. And you can see how these wrong ideas, these wrong conceptions that we cling to, cause so much pain, because reality eventually shines forth. And then we're left with our cracked expectations. Okay. So pain doesn't have to be inherent in our life. It arises due to causes and conditions, and especially causes and the wrong conceptions as the causes and conditions. So that's why we have to identify our wrong conceptions and free ourselves of them. So someone asked a question that it's a person in the helping professions, and I've heard this same question from other people in the helping professions, that when they're at work with their clients, they're extremely patient, extremely kind. They're very good listeners. They realize that the other people are upset, so they don't take things personally. They really put themselves out there and give of themselves to help their clients. And, don't get too upset about things, because they have very strongly in their mind that they're serving these other people in whatever type of helping profession it is. But when they go home, it's almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Mr. Hyde and Dr. Jekyll, in the sense that, it's like, my spouse doesn't pay attention to me, and my kids take me for granted, and these people don't listen, and all they do is complain to me, and they're so contrary, and every little thing they do just bugs me, because they're always just doing this and that and the other thing. Anybody else in helping professions have that happen? Oh. Yeah, it's real easy, isn't it? So then you start thinking, well, am I a little bit nuts here? Am I really being kind to my clients? How come I can't treat my own family, who at the end of the day I care much more about and have been much kinder to me than the clients? How come I can't care the same way about them? Okay, so my guess as to what is happening, you may have some other ideas, is that when you're at work, you have the idea, I am here to serve these other people. My job is to listen. My job is to be patient. My job is to be kind. If I'm demanding, if I'm irascible, if I'm easily offended, I'm not fulfilling my job. I won't be doing what I want to be able to do to help these people. So with that idea in mind, it becomes very easy to just let go of things, because you're so focused on doing your job well because you want to do it well. Okay? But I think what happens is when you come home, you let go of that image of yourself, that identity as being, I'm here to benefit these people, and you assume the identity of, I'm with my family, and, I'm give to them, and they better give back. And I have a right to demand something from my family. After all, we're married, so they made a vow to me. So if they're not keeping their vow, I can say something about it. And I need to be told I'm loved, and I need to be cuddled, and I need to be heard, and all my tension at work, I should be able to spill out on them because they are part of me. They're the people closest to me. They're part of me. So, we're stuck with each other. We're family. So I can treat them any way they want. They're not going to go away. Where's my clients if I just let loose? Boy, they're going to go, and then where am I going to be? So we just let loose. Self-centered mind kind of steps in there and goes, all over these people that we care about. And I think it's simply because of how we've described to ourselves what our role is in relationship to these people. The people that we're there to serve, this is our role, so this is how we act. Our family, this is how our role, so this is, what we're entitled to do. Does it make some sense? Yeah?
You know, those of us who work in the helping professions, it's the same idea, but those of us who work in the helping professions have all been through training programs. We've been taught how to behave with our clients. There's no training program for parents.
Oh, this is a very good point, that in your profession you've been through training courses. And it's also been really emphasized to you that you must act this way. You know, you do not have permission to let loose on your clients. But nobody trains you to be a good spouse. Nobody trains you to be a good parent. You know, so you have all this imprint of what you saw in your family of origin that you vowed never to do when you have your own family. You know, you vow, I will never speak to my children the way my parents spoke to me. And then what comes out of your mouth? Exactly the same words your parents said to you that you vowed you would never say to your kid. You know, and you don't have any training. And what's incredible too is we don't want any training. Yeah, I don't want any training on how to be a good spouse. I don't want any training on how to be a good parent. I just want to do it, you know. Or we don't even think of like being a good spouse or a good parent as something that you need to work at. Maybe being a good parent, you know, before you have your baby, you think, I really want to have a good parent, be a good parent and do something for them. But, you know, with your spouse, you never need to think, you know, I need to train how to be a good spouse. Because we think that our love is just going to carry us on forever and ever. Yeah. And of course, you know, you train how to be a good spouse with the babies, right? You know, how to hold them so their heads don't tip back and how to feed them, how to burp them. But do you ever go to a training course on how to have a teenager? You know? Are there many training courses for how to be a parent to a teenager? There are?
Yeah, there are.
Do people actually go to them?
They do.
Do they do anything but complain?
Well, the ones I've been to have been very beneficial.
Really?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah.
He's a senior. He'll get it.
Okay. Yeah. So I think very often the people that we're closest with are the ones that we really have to practice more with. Because sometimes just by the fact that we see them every day, you know, we just assume that they're part of us and, you know, we're just kind of there with each other. That's it. Yeah? And so the kind of taking people for granted. Yeah.
There's something about and it's so interesting to look at our self-centered mind. It's fascinating, this whole issue of when you come home, you're off.
Yeah.
And not that I've got this down by any means whatsoever, but it's like making a conscious choice when I pull up to like regroup again. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going in the house now. They're not going to want to hear about my day. They're going to want me. So it's in it's like continuously try to remember to set motivation.
Yeah.
For like transition times.
Yes.
It's those transition times that even like here, even like transition times, the mind goes away. So it's remembering during those transition times, and even during the day, I can set these motivations where I would really try to remember to set motivation, and then we've talked to Lee about this, and then by the end of the day, you go, well, sure didn't do that. I forgot, So it's like trying to find a way to remember.
Yeah.
Timers or bells or phone calls to each other.
Yeah.
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 It's interesting. So it's like continually trying to set the motivation.
Patient, right. I found that too, that, if I stop, like if I know I'm going to be with a person that's going to have a certain issue or somebody that's going to be different or difficult, if I stop and, think about, I'm going into this situation, this is the way I want to be, it works much, much better than if we're just rushed and hurried and plumb, we, walk in there. So I think it's very true, when you get home before you even open the front door, to pause and think, I'm going in to see the family who I care very much about. Yeah? And these are the people who I cherish, and so these are the people I want to be kind to. And set that conscious intention, before opening the door. And like you said, if you have kids, they're going to want attention from me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm in the helping profession, and my clients generally ask for, want my help. They realize that.
Yeah.
Do you know where I'm going?
Yes.
Just be quiet.
Yes. So this is another good point, that when you're in a helping profession, the people come to you because they want your help. So also they have a certain attitude towards you. They respect you. They see you as an expert. They want to hear your advice. Yeah, they want to hear it, and they're willing to pay for your advice. Whereas when you go home, you're giving your advice free, and they don't even want to hear it. Here's free advice.
You got a solution to that? I'm sitting here thinking about it, being miserable, and what's the solution?
Yeah, I think it's this whole thing of really setting our intention. Because if we develop the concept at work, oh, I'm the expert, I can give good advice, these people want to hear it, then we have a certain kind of, we relate in a certain way. But if we take that same attitude home with us, it's a different situation. Yeah, and our family isn't coming to us because they necessarily want our advice. They're coming to us because they've had a hard day and they want somebody to talk to. So they want us to listen, not to advise. Or your kids come to you because they want to play. Yeah, they don't want to learn they don't want advice on this and that. They want to play with you. Okay, so people are coming to you with different needs than, the one that you build a self-image about of, oh, I'm a person who has good advice, who can help people. So really, I think a lot of it has to do with changing our image. And now I'm going, and the way I help people is to play. The way I help people is to listen. The way I help people is to take out the garbage. The way I help people is by chopping the carrots. Yeah? So you take that same motivation to help, but you have to do something different. And whereas your clients, they pay you, they say thank you, they come back the next week and they say that was so helpful. Your family doesn't necessarily do that. Yeah? But, it's also saying, do we do that to our family? Yeah, when our family members listen to us, when we're complaining or we just need to, unload, and they listen, or when they do some extra work in the house because we're exhausted, or whatever, do we go up and say thank you afterwards? Do we go up and say, oh, I really appreciated how much you listened to me, or I really appreciated your support when I was, talking about that? Do we thank our family members, or do we just take their kindness for granted? Yeah. So it's not just how they behave towards us, you know, but how we, you know, give back to them and acknowledge what they do give to us. Yeah. And so sometimes it's the people that we live with all the time that are the people we need to take the most care with. Yeah, because those are the people we just take for granted. Those are the people that our mind complains about the most over petty, stupid things. Yeah, and so to train the mind to really see their good qualities and to comment on their good qualities and to thank them. Mm-hmm.
Well, I just don't know if I need to be saying this, take enough space, but I was thinking about wherever we go, there's the 8 worldly concerns. It's like that the image doesn't drop at work. The image continues with family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting how...
You mean the wanting for a good image?
image.
Yeah, wanting praise, wanting approval.
When you were speaking just then, I just was like, yeah, and you're displeased when you don't have it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, there's no break with that either. I mean, you're constantly on guard with that, or
Yeah.
looking at that,
Yeah. Wanting it, craving it.
wanting and craving it,
Mm.
and expecting it.
And especially from our family. You know, we're married. You owe me that. I have the certificate to prove it. This certificate says, you are going to love me no matter what. Look at it and act that way. You know?
Try that.
Okay, Venerable Tarpa, you had a question or comment?
Well, I was just thinking, like in the work environment, besides the training before you get in it, you actually have a lot of support in it when you kind of get off base or need help with things. Like you have with a manager, and you usually have mentoring if you put yourself in that situation. And that's really helpful because you're actually in the throes of it all and you're having support. So when you get kind of, you know, when problems come up, you're not just alone in your house with things. You've got people who have been through this. They know how to help you.
Yeah.
In a lot of situations
Yeah.
I've been in, I've had really good mentoring, really good managers. And when I've had to learn a lot, and they've helped me. And things have gone better.
So it also brings up the question, too, of how much are we open to receive the help from our family? You know? When we're in a bad mood and our family is trying to help us, do we listen? I mean, it's this thing of flipping the situation, you know? That, you know, not only do we go home and want to give our family advice, which they don't want to hear, but when they give us advice and when they're sincerely trying to help us, do we listen or do we just get defensive? Yeah?
Usually, I think now I try to listen. I was just thinking about what you said before, when you were like, I don't want to say the same thing as my parents. Is it weird to think that I want to raise my children similarly to the way I was raised?
No, I don't think that's weird, because I think if you really appreciate many of the things your parents do, that you want to raise your kids in the way your parents raised you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thinking about getting help in the house, or when you're saying you want help, or they try to help you and you reject it in some way, that for me has come up less with advice or talking to me about my day, but doing things around the home. And I've seen it come up here at the Abbey too. Everybody kind of has a specific way of doing things. And for myself, I've found that I get very caught up in my way of doing things.
Yeah.
I want it done my way, so if I ask you to do this, I want you to do it my way. You're going to clean your kitchen, do it my way. You're going to cook dinner, do it my way.
Yeah.
So what I've found, and it has been extremely helpful, is I just walk away. And the result is always what I hope for. The result, I'm always grateful for the result. And I think it's really important to recognize too when we're really creating unneeded anxiety around certain things where we're projecting, they are going to help, but we're just projecting all this us onto it, because they're not doing it the right way,
Right.
So I find I always walk away if I need help, I'll say, can you do that? And then I have to leave the room.
Mhm.
But it works. I can go do something else, and when I come back, whatever I want to do is done.
Yeah.
I have to see how it was done.
Right.
That's something that I found has helped my marriage.
Yeah, I bet. Now, I think this is very true, that so often we ask somebody to do something, and what we're asking is not just to attain that goal, but to do it the way we would do it, you know? And then when they don't do it the way we do it, we get upset. And so your solution is just to walk away, do something else, because at the end, the result is still the same as what you want, even though they got there by a different road. And you save yourself a lot of aggravation in the process of it. Yeah, and them too, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's very true, and we noticed that around the Abbey. Last year, some of the people did a skit about it was the young adult group. Huh?
She was in it.
Oh yeah, right. You were in it.
No, you need to use this one. That rag isn't for this, it's for this. Use that rag for that other thing, not that. I don't want to do with the rag
Yeah. Yeah. So, mm-hmm.
I wanted to point out one more thing. I was never in the helping professions. Thank God. Marriage and children was enough for me. But the thing is, when he has a client and this client's telling, oh, I had a really bad day and I overdrew the checking account, the house payment bounced, and I took all my lunch money and went gambling with it. Well, it's not his joint checking account that they're talking about.
That's true.
That element of professional distance. Which I'm sure sometimes he's really grateful for.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. Very true. You can listen to other people do completely outlandish things that if your own spouse or child did, you would totally freak out because, like you said, it's your checking account or it's your house or it's your car or whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah, so you see this element of I, how it creeps in, doesn't it? I and mine.
Is that supposed to comfort me?
That is. I'll just be so grateful that the things that you're hearing about in your professional life aren't happening at home. At least I hope they aren't.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the reasons I'm in the profession. So to remember how miserable everybody else is.
A lot of people get there by
Yeah.
that route.
Yeah.
And go home and
Okay.
say, so lucky.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's another important point, that it's very important to appreciate the people that we live with, because it's all too easy to pick at their faults, as we know. Yeah, all too easy to comment on their faults, pick on their faults, insist that they acknowledge their faults. You know. And yet with other people, we aren't that way. You know, sometimes we give strangers or people or clients, people we don't know so well, we give them a lot more space. Yeah. But I think with people we're close to, we almost feel like they're part of us. So, especially with your kids, you know, your kids have to be really good, perfect. Yeah. They have to be everything we weren't, whether they want, they have to have everything we didn't have and be everything we weren't, whether they want to have those things or not, and whether they want to be those things or not. Okay? So again, that causes a lot of grief. A lot of grief. You know, just, you can see the operation of the mind, the expectation of the mind. I had one friend when they had their first child, he said he was holding, you know, his baby girl. She was like a month or two old. And he already had her college education planned, you know? And then he realized, hey, wait a minute. No, this kid has her own life that she's going to lead. You know, I'm here to guide and support, but I can't plan out somebody's life. Okay, so shall we continue? Okay. Okay, so we were talking about verse 53, but you share and give to others all of the happiness which belongs to you, and whatever sufferings others may have, you cultivate the attitude, may they be my own. Okay? So doing this not only with clients, but with the people that we're really close to. So there's some more verses in Bodhicharyavatara that I thought, that pertain to this, that I thought to read. So they're all in chapter 8. Okay. So Shantideva says, if I do not actually exchange my happiness for the suffering of others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood, and even in cyclic existence shall have no joy. Okay. Actually, there's another verse I need to read first that actually subsumes it better. Whatever joy there is in this world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. And whatever suffering there is in this world, all comes from desiring myself to be happy. Okay, so this is really succinctly pointing out the faults of the self-centered mind, okay? Whatever joy there is in the world, all comes from desiring others to be happy. So when my mind is focused on the well-being of others, yeah, then I give them joy, and I'm focused on that. When they feel happy, I feel happy. I rejoice in their joy. I rejoice in their good qualities. Okay? And I'm also free of, you know, all this drama that my mind creates about my own situation. You know, that we were talking about, how we spin and twirl around ourselves. Okay? So we're free from that when the mind is really genuinely involved with compassion. Again, not with keeping busy helping others so that we don't feel our own stuff, but because we genuinely care. And whatever suffering there is in this world all comes from desiring myself to be happy. So when we have, with this self-centered view, this desire for ourselves to be happy, and this, you know, self-centered view is there all day long, desiring ourselves to be happy. Yeah, with every small thing that happens, we're looking out for ourselves and how we can eke some pleasure out of it. And that very mind causes us so much pain, because that very mind that's completely swirling around, you know, how am I going to get something out of this situation? It makes us miserable now because, again, we're fighting in the reality of impermanence. We're fighting the reality of whatever's going on because we're so convinced that our needs, our wants, everything should come first. Okay? So, and in addition, you know, when we have this thing of, you know, wanting ourselves in a self-centered way to be happy, then we do so many things that are inconsiderate of others. You know, others, what we want to do things our way, and, you know, we don't care if it inconveniences somebody else. Yeah, you're inconvenienced by what I'm doing. That's your problem. You handle it, I'm doing what I want. You know, we very often have that kind of idea. And so in the process, we create a lot of negative karma. You know, either through having a mind of covetousness or ill will, or through harsh speech, or through lying to somebody to get what we want, or creating disharmony, you know. But it all comes from this wish of, you know, I've got to protect myself and I've got to be happy before anybody else. So that mind, that self-centered mind, which pretends to be our best friend, actually is our worst enemy. And so that's why this verse says, whatever joy there is in this world all comes from desiring others to be happy, and whatever suffering there is in this world all comes from desiring myself to be happy. What need is there to say much more? The childish work for their own benefit, the Buddhas work for the benefit of others. Just look at the difference between them. So we're called childish sentient beings. Okay? So we childish sentient beings work for our own benefit. The Buddhas work for the benefit of others. Who's happier? Who has more joy and peace in their lives, us or the Buddhas? Kind of clear, isn't it? Yeah, so sitting here just working for our own happiness doesn't bring us the goal that we want. And they're the Buddhas who really genuinely in their heart put others before themselves. And they have far greater happiness than we do, even though we're always, every instant, thinking how we can benefit in a situation. Does that sound extreme to you, to say that in every instant we're thinking of how we can benefit? Or is your mind saying, no, I don't always do that? Yeah? Try just observing. Yeah? All the time. All the time. Let's see, I want to get to the door and get my shoes and get out of the door soon, because I don't want to wait for all the other people who piddle around with their shoes and take a long time to get out the door. Yeah? So we just figure out how we can get to the door, get our shoes, and get out before anybody else does. Okay. So, I mean, it's a small, tiny thing, isn't it? But just how our mind, what is it focused on? How I can get what I want. Mm-hmm.
I'll think I'm doing something for somebody else, and then if I really look at my motivation, I'm doing that thing for that other person so that in return they're happier with me, or they're feeling I benefit because if they're happy, you know, like it's still even selfish motivation.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'll do it to appease you so that you're less grumpy, kind of thing, you know? It's like, oh, I'm doing something nice. It's
Yeah.
really so I feel better about.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice to be able to do it because you really realize that person's so grumpy and you want to do something to make them feel better. Instead of just I need to relieve how my feeling bad, how awful it is that I feel when I'm around them when they're grumpy. Yeah. So really, you know, working with the motivation again and again. Okay. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't be nice to them when they're grumpy. You know, it's a good thing to do. Yeah. It sure beats being mean to them. Okay. And then comes the verse I read before. If I do not actually exchange my happiness for the suffering others, I shall not attain the state of Buddhahood, and even in cyclic existence shall have no joy. So we won't, if we don't exchange our happiness for the suffering of others, you know, how are we going to be Buddha? If we, you know, have you ever heard of a Buddha who cares more about their own self-interest than the interest of others? Have you ever heard about a self-centered Buddha? Yeah? No. We don't hear about a Buddha who's all stuck in their, you know, their own self-preoccupation. You can't have a Buddha like that. So how do we think we're going to become Buddhas and at the same time hold on to our self-centered thought? It's not going to work. Okay? So not only does this self-centered thought interfere with our becoming a Buddha, but it also interferes even in cyclic existence. We won't have any well-being because it's really clear and obvious, that when people act out of very strong self-centeredness, they do things that disturb the peace and harmony of other people. It's very clear, isn't it? Of course, we see when others act out of self-centeredness how they disturb our peace and harmony. But what we have to train our mind to see is how when we act in a self-centered way, we disturb their peace and harmony. So it's this whole thing of looking at the effects of our actions on others, even the effects of our thoughts on others, because our actions originate in our thoughts. Okay? Strong verses, aren't they? Very strong. Here's some more. If all the injury, fear, and pain in this world arise from grasping at a self, then what use is that great ghost to me? Okay? If all the injury, fear, and pain in this world arise from grasping at a self, then what use is that great ghost to me? So if we look, and if all of our fear, all of our pain, where does it come from? Yeah, it comes from karma, it comes from afflictions, doesn't it? Doesn't come from the other people. It comes from karma and afflictions. Yeah, what underlies? Yeah, well, the karma comes from the afflictions. Yeah, what underlies the afflictions? Well, the self-grasping ignorance and also the self-centered thought. Okay? So if all of those, if the self-centered thought and the self-grasping ignorance are the cause of all my injury and fear and anxiety, what use are they to me? Yeah? It's like inviting a thief into your house and saying, yeah, come on in, make a mess. Yeah, take whatever you want. Mm-hmm. One time, many years ago, I was asked to give a talk at a high school. And there was one boy who, I think he had been raised in a born-again Christian kind of family, because he said to me, do you guys believe in the devil? And I said, we don't think of the devil as an external being, but we think of our own self-centered mind as being like a devil in the sense that it causes unhappiness to ourselves and to others. I said, there's no external being who's going to harm us. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. It's the internal self-centered mind, self-grasping ignorance. Those are the things that are the biggest harm. Mm-hmm. So I think that, Shantidev is so amazing how he says something with so much meaning in so few words. Yeah, this self-centered mind is driving me crazy. What use is it to me? Why do I follow it? This is nuts. Yeah, I want to be happy. Why do I follow this thing that's making me unhappy? If we want to, that's the epitome of being dysfunctional, isn't it? Yeah, everybody talks about dysfunctional this and dysfunctional that. Well, that's the epitome. Yeah, is when we want happiness and we create the causes of suffering. And the self-centered thoughts, they're leading us to do that. If I do not completely forsake it, I shall be unable to put an end to suffering, just as I cannot avoid being burned if I do not cast aside the fire that I hold. Okay? So as long as you're holding something that's flaming, you're going to get burned. Okay? So it's only by completely forsaking it that we stop our own pain. So it says, if I do not completely forsake it, the self-centered mind, I shall be unable to put an end to suffering. Yeah? Because it's like holding on to a fire and saying, this hurts so much, it hurts so much. And we're holding on to the fire and we're not letting go. At the same time, shrieking at the top of our lungs about how much it hurts. Therefore, in order to allay the harms inflicted upon me, and in order to pacify the sufferings of others, I shall give myself up to others and cherish them as I do my very self. Okay? And so in order to allay the harms inflicted on me, in other words, even if somebody else is harming me, to pacify those harms, even to pacify the harms inflicted on me by the self-centered thought, and in order to pacify the miseries of other beings, okay, then I shall give up myself to others and cherish them as I do my very self. Okay, so instead of putting myself up here and all others kind of down here somewhere, seeing that the only way for us to really find happiness and to really be able to attain Buddhahood is completely to switch that. Yeah? And instead of cherishing our own happiness more than anything else, cherish the happiness and welfare of others more than anything else. So this is easy to understand. You know, these teachings they're not difficult to understand. They're extremely difficult to do, aren't they? Yeah. Intellectually, they're not like understanding emptiness. They're not difficult, complicated. Yeah, with a lot of terminology that we don't understand. Very easy to understand. Easy to do. And it's so funny, isn't it? Because we're terrified of giving up our self-centeredness. We're terrified, you know? Because we think if I'm not self-centered, I'm going to be miserable. If I don't take care of myself, I'm going to be miserable. I mean, that's what our big fear is. If I don't get what I want, I'm going to be miserable. If I don't take care of myself, I'm going to be miserable. We're chanting this kind of mantra to ourselves all the time. If somebody doesn't do it my way, I'm going to be miserable. We never open our mind to think that if somebody does something another way, it might actually be better than our way. We don't open our mind to the possibility that if we don't get what we want, what we think we want right now, we might actually have more happiness than getting what we want. Yeah? We don't open our mind to those possibilities, but we have an idea and we just glom onto it and never think, you know, oh, somebody else's idea could be better. Somebody else's way of doing things might make it easier. Yeah? Doing what somebody else wants might actually make me more happy than doing what I think I want. We never think like that, you know? We just decide on something based on hardly any reason and then cling to it with all of our might. Don't you think? You know? It's like the dishes need to be washed this way. Dinner needs to be made this way. And I mean, I'm talking about petty things, but boy, we can have a really long drawn-out quarrel about that. Let alone bigger things, you know, how to do a bigger project. Yeah. We never think that maybe something that isn't our thought might actually work out better or even bring us more happiness. You know? And we never think that it might actually bring somebody else more happiness, and that it might be nicer for us if we lived with happy sentient beings than if we lived with unhappy sentient beings. Because sometimes we are so insistent on being right and on winning the argument that we don't care if the people we live with or work with are unhappy. We just want to be right and we want to win. And, we should say to ourselves, and then of course, when we've conquered the other people, because that's basically what we want to do, is conquer them, and then they're miserable, and then they complain, and they do, manipulate and do things behind our back because we've made them we've made them powerless, then we should think, I chose to do this. Yeah, if I choose to win, I am choosing to live with a loser, with the person who lost. Because there's no way the person who lost is going to go away. They aren't going to vanish from the face of this earth. So we have to remember, if I'm willing to win, I have to be willing to live with the person who lost, the argument. Yeah. If I'm going to insist on being right no matter what, then I have to accept living with a person who feels humiliated, and with a person who feels wronged, and a person who feels like they're not heard. So it's the same thing of, we're coming back to the same things, aren't we? Looking at how our actions affect others, realizing that we have a choice, realizing that it doesn't, the misery doesn't come from others, it comes from our own blindness. We keep coming back to these same points again and again, and being willing to accept the consequences of our own actions, which usually we aren't willing to. Yeah, I should be able to do whatever I want and not have any unpleasant results happen. Right?
Right.
Yeah. I should be able to, dump my stuff on somebody else and not have any bad consequences of their feeling offended or hurt or anything. Yeah, I should be able to do that. When we actually look at the way we think is so stupid. Isn't it? Yeah, it's so nonsensical. It's just we don't usually stop and look at the way we think. We just think it and expect it. And I mean that's the MO of the self-centered thought. Yeah, I should be able to win the argument, humiliate this person, and have them love me all at the same time. Right? Right? Not gonna work. Okay. Okay, so this is, what Shantideva here is talking about here is not only, these teachings, they apply to our life right now, and we can think of manifold examples of how to put these into practice right now. And that's good, and we need to do that, because if we don't put them into practice, then we act out of our afflictions of self-centeredness, and we create a ton of negative karma. Okay. But at the same time, our motivation for putting these things into practice should not be just so that I can have a happier life. Okay? Yeah, we should really have the intention, I'm going to put this into practice because I want to become a Buddha for the benefit of sentient beings. And a byproduct of that is having a happier life and getting along better with people now. But just having a happier life shouldn't be our main motivation, because if we have a motivation that's for the happiness of this life only, that's the only result that will be the fruition of our actions. If we have a motivation for the long-term, enlightenment of ourself and others, then the merit we create doesn't get exhausted until we're enlightened. You know, the merit keeps building and building and building. Okay? So according to what our motivation is, that's the kind of result we want. So we might practice these same techniques and act the same way with our friends or colleagues or family. But depending upon what our motivation is for practicing these techniques, in the long term we're going to get different results. Because if we just are trying to have a happier life this time, we'll get that by practicing this. But then the results will cease at the end of that. If we're practicing these techniques with the aspiration for full Buddhahood, you know, the merit we create is never going to run out. Okay? Because we're looking at that long-term goal. Okay? Any comments or questions? Yeah.
You said this a number of times. Today you made it very clear. I'd like you to say more. You say never, and then today you said in every instant we're seeing how I can benefit. Every instant, and you've said that a number of times, like we never think, blah, blah, blah. It's like, it's so big. I mean, is that what you really see?
When I look at my own mind and my own behavior, yep, that's what I see. You know, I watch how I eat lunch, okay? I put the things on my spoon or fork that I think are going to bring me the most happiness in that bite. You know what? Why do you put, you know, and you see, you know, you have your food. I won't say who. We know each other very well here. You know, kind of mix it together, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then, you know, because that's the right mix, you know, of exactly the amount of potato plus carrot plus, you know, whatever that soupy stuff was, plus, you know, exactly that amount is going to give me happiness. You know, and we arrange that bite exactly for that purpose. And then while we're chewing that, we totally space out. We don't pay any attention at all to the sensation of that because we're busy planning the next bite. You know, a little bit of carrot, you know, this time I want raw carrot and some salad, and oh, get that gravy out of here. It doesn't belong on the salad. You know? And just like that, trying to be happy. Isn't it? You know, you watch at the lunch line. I won't say who. and this is why we now have, you know, as of yesterday or the day before, a new Abbey policy of you only put two times. I noticed I did something 3 times. That's right after I said that. Because I wanted a piece of cantaloupe and 2 strawberries, and I couldn't do it all in 2 spoonfuls. You know, but we watch, you know, and it's like, okay, that piece of tofu, that one looks good. And you get your little, you know, thing. That piece of tofu. And I don't like the way they cut that carrot. the way they cut that carrot. Okay. Right? Yeah. And then we make sure we have the right amount. Yeah. I mean, all the time, just looking how we can be happy. Yeah. How we fold the towels. whether we fold the towels. Folding the towels causes me so much suffering. I'm not going to do it. I'll just leave it, and somebody else will come along and fold them. Right? I won't say who does that. You know. Are you volunteering for Okay. You know what causes me tremendous suffering? What I hate to do is I hate to vacuum stairs. So I will do anything to get out of that, you know. I'm real good at it, too. At getting out of it, not at doing it. Because it's just too much suffering to vacuum stairs, you know. Yeah.
So I'm just curious, in this example of how we're eating to satisfy our own pleasure, how can we transform that into eating for the benefit of others? How can
Yeah.
we-
Well, this is the contemplations we do at the beginning, the first 5 contemplations, to actually contemplate them, you know, instead of saying them, but to actually think of them. You know, this is wondrous food to nourish my body. Why am I nourishing my body? So that I can practice the Dharma, so that I can do kind things, extend kindness to others. You know, I contemplate this food with the aim of Buddhahood. That's my long-term purpose, why I'm keeping my body alive. It's not just because I want to be alive and I'm afraid of death, but I want to use this life in a valuable way. Okay? So really by thinking like that, and then when we're eating, thinking that we're making offering to the Buddha, thinking of the Buddha at our heart and making offering.
When you were talking about that, the motivation to be the Buddha for benefit others, is that the ultimate
Yeah,
motivation?
yeah. Yeah, nothing better than that. It's actually to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's not just others, it's also for ourselves. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was just curious, what is the policy, or what is the monastic policy that you take, or is it for all of us that we take 2?
Okay. Well, what I started to see is when we have a lot of people here, sometimes the lunch line, and we only have 1 line, we don't have 2 lines, it can take a long time. So I suggested the other day that we all kind of train our minds that you only get 2 scoops of whatever dish it is, and if it's not enough, then you come back later for seconds, because that way the lunch line will move very quickly. Whereas, you know, if we're sitting there with, you know, picking out each piece of lettuce and each this and that, then, you know, all these other people are waiting behind us. Yeah, so I suggested it also as a mindfulness practice. You know, can we do this?
The problem is not quantity, though, it's quality. So we're just going to take 2 scoops, so we're going to take twice as long to make sure those... We can come back around again. Really good.
So you're saying we're just going to take our time and make sure that 1 scoop...
1 carrot, and then the
You were watching me yesterday, that's what I did. Yes?
So Venerable, I really want to go back to Tarka's question. In every instant, we never think of others. I mean,
I'm just...
I believe that fairly much about myself. There are a few instances where I don't believe it about myself. I surely don't believe that about you. I get the whole lunch thing, and I mean, I believe that.
Well, if I do it for something small like lunch, I'm going to do it for other things that are bigger.
Yeah, but every instant? I mean, even going back to, you know, what Sandy Sandy said this morning, where she kind of implied that suddenly, you know, if you look out the window and you see this child is about to get hit by a car, you don't, I mean, very possibly, you might think, but you might not think. You might just move. I mean, so, like, we have that in us.
Yeah, we do. We do have that in us.
And
Yeah.
would you say, I mean, if our nature is good in nature, isn't that even in some way wired into us, along with all the wacko stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, clearly there's a compassionate instinct. There's a kind instinct. That's very clear. Otherwise, as a species, we wouldn't be able to survive, would we?
And well, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's also there. But, you know, and so it doesn't mean that the self-centeredness always wins out. But when we're not watching, when we're not careful, it's the default mode. Yeah.
So, back to lunch. I was thinking, you know, the risk is that if I sit there and think about I'm offering this food to the Buddha instead of thinking about getting it so it tastes optimally good, I don't think it's going to be as pleasurable. I mean, it seems saying,
You what?
it doesn't seem like it would be as pleasurable. I mean, obviously I'm right off on the wrong track. But what I'm trying to say is that you and Shantideva are saying that you know, we'll actually be happier. You know, like in that example, if we sit and think of offering this food and how it will help our body to, you know, that, to benefit others, and that's going to be more happy causing than if I sit there and get the pleasure of a mouthful of food. Even as I say it, I see the logic of it. I don't know. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is that it seems like there's going to be a period of time in between when that higher way of doing things, before that starts bringing me happiness. Because it's not as if I have to try it. At least it's one mouthful of, you know, instead of paying attention to the taste, I'm offering it, and it just doesn't.
It doesn't bring you as much pleasure. Okay. So we have a complaint here. that arranging the perfect bite, gives you much more pleasure than, thinking that you're eating for the benefit of sentient beings. Okay, so the question is, isn't there kind of something that happens between one and the other? Isn't there a learning curve that you go through? Yes, clearly, there's a learning curve. Yeah, there's got to be. I mean, this is a thing of training our mind. We're always training. It's a thing of training. Yeah, that's why we say practice Dharma. That's why we're trainees. Okay, we're not expected to get it all right and have it be all good, but we're training the mind. Okay. We're over time, and I think some people are agitating for medicine meal. So the people who have questions, maybe if you could just save them for next time, write them down so you don't forget them. Okay. But, yeah. But it's good to watch, when we got that perfect bite and we put it in our mouth, do we even pause to taste it? Yeah, so, you said that's so much more pleasurable than eating for the benefit of thinking for sentient beings. But how much are you actually tasting your food when you're busy planning the next bite? Yeah.